Okay, so this one's interesting. Obviously, we've been tracking the progress of Dragon's Dogma since launch. It's a game that is extremely heavy on the CPU, and we've seen various patches since launch. And this week, we haven't tested it on console yet, but Alex, you did check out the PC version because they were talking about performance optimizations. And the question is, have they actually delivered?
I'd say they're like getting there. So the problem at launch on all devices, PC and console, was that you just go into the town areas of the game and presumably the NPCs and the amount of objects in the towns. It's definitely the NPCs because the draw distance of NPCs is still ridiculously low, even as of this patch. But it would just cause wild frame times, really bad frame times. And that would lead to a very unsmooth experience. Didn't feel like 30 FPS, even if maybe 30 FPS was nearly achieved. So that's improved as of like patch 1. But then this patch now, looking at it, putting it side by side with both the original game, patch 1, and now I've turned it patch 9, but I just looked at the release of patches and I numbered it 9. Here we're seeing over launch 26% better average frame rate performance, which takes the game on the Ryzen 5 3600 when CPU limited up into the 40s primarily, versus almost like sub 30 all the time. And if you look at the frame times while running around, they're also a lot better in general. I think that's great. The frame times still aren't perfect. If you do look, there are some, like one-off, whoa, like hills and valleys there that don't look too great. I think an FPS cap would maybe sort those out because the processor's probably being completely overwhelmed here by running it unlocked. Yes, which is the thing that happens. So I think an FPS lock is still recommended, but I think this puts the game in a much better place than it was at launch. But it's a little terrifying to see, I think, that, with patches, we're seeing games now recovering back like 25% or more performance. And, that's all fine and well. I'm happy to see it happen, but it does point out the fact that the game was put out way too early. It probably should have come out later with better performance.
Yeah, the frame times are the launch code there, my word. That's not good, is it?
No, it was pretty unplayable, I thought, in the cities at launch. And I said as much in the video that we attached to our main review there, where I said you should really wait to play this game because I think it's going to get better. I think it's a little weird, though, that the draw distance for NPCs is still so bad. Well, I had to do multiple runs to get this benchmark actually working. One is because there's a lot of things that just like stop your character in the middle of the city while running. Like a character walks up to you and I had to start over. But another thing that ended up happening is I would sometimes run into NPCs that would pop up immediately in front of me and it would mess up the run. So it was still a thing. I'm curious if they can ever fix that. I wonder why they have the draw distance of NPCs somehow related to this. Like, I would imagine they could like imposter them in some way to get them at least visually there, if not calculating all the NPC stuff behind the scenes. So I don't know. I still think it doesn't look very good in cities as a result of that NPC pop up, but at least it performs a lot better.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about your imposter theory there. Well, for those that don't know, an imposter is basically a 2D sprite that transitions into the 3D model when it's closer, but the characters here manifest so close to the character. I think the imposters would kind of look a bit.
Yeah, I mean, they could do like maybe instead of like a 2D imposter, it could just be like a 3D, very dumbly animated thing. It doesn't need to have like all the, I don't know. Like it's like it doesn't need to be a full NPC. It could be something different. That's the thing that I imagine in development that probably wasn't there. I think the drawing in their draw distance was something they did as like an emergency measure before launch, because I don't think anyone was designing these epic Dragon's Dogma 2 cities and they were thinking, the characters are just going to magically pop up in front of you. Like it still looks really bad, actually.
It's not exactly Assassin's Creed in that regard, is it?
No, and in fact, you look at a lot of other games with open world cities, it's pretty dire here if you look at it in comparison. But, those games are much more limited in terms of like the systemic interaction of what can actually happen. Like, these cities can be attacked by like giant monsters and stuff like that. That's pretty cool.
So Oliver wasn't available to do the console comparisons here, but John, last time we discussed Dragon's Dogma, it had the 120 hertz VRR support added, and you were considering playing it.
Yeah,
have you been playing it?
I have not finished the game, but I definitely played significantly more of it. I was happy enough with that prior mode. I haven't actually checked to see if performance has improved since then, but that did basically fix the frame time issues that I had before. And, it was not smooth per se, but it was consistent. And that's basically all I wanted, was the frame time seemed smooth. And I know Alex doesn't like to hear this, but I was using VRR as a crutch, and it was a crutch that worked in this case. Because without VRR, it was still in shambles, shall we say?
Yeah,
shambles.
Okay. It's an interesting game though, because I'm not sure I like it as much as the original, which is I wasn't compelled to finish it yet. But I think there's some really cool stuff in here, but there's just something about it that's a little off, and it's hard to explain why yet. But it's still a well-built game, and there's a lot of interesting stuff, and the mechanics are still unique for this. And I hope that they leverage some of the Dragon's Dogma stuff in building Monster Hunter Wilds.
I love how everyone has trouble pronouncing this game, by the way.
Dragon's
Dogma.
Dogsmas.
DD2. I just call it DD2. Always.
DD2. It's not DRDR, it's DD2.
Yeah.
Are you looking forward to the PS5 Pro version? It's been mooted for upgrade.
I am very curious about that because, that's unlike Dragon's Dogma. I mean, it's Final Fantasy VII is the thing I'm most interested on the Pro, because I kind of did, as I famously said online, I have not played through more. I played like almost 10 hours, but then I just stopped because the image quality, I kept bouncing between quality and performance mode a lot, and it was pretty nasty. I saw your little section on the Dragon's Dogma last week on the Pro Direct, and all like, what was it, like 300 frames or something, or 400 frames?
Yeah, the intro area.
It was like, hey, it was 60 there, I think, for like those those frames. But I'm extremely skeptical that they can get this game running at 60 FPS constant on the PS5 Pro, because the CPU stuff is just, they have not figured out how to overcome that. It's just a fundamental limitation of the game's performance right now. So unless they work some kind of weird magic, like stuff like upscaling, upsampling, none of that's going to help where the game is limited, right? Might have better image quality though.
That could
got
be true.
A 10% CPU bump that they could tap into. Plus, you've got the increased performance, hopefully, from this patch. So maybe it would just become a bit smoother in your VRR crutch scenario.
It could.
I mean, theoretically, they could get it to. I guess realistically, they could actually get it to be kind of mostly 60 in a lot of areas. It's true that it probably won't be 60 in the town. But I think in the open world area, perhaps it is actually possible to get there most of the time, right? And then VR can cushion the blow. The town is the thing I'm going to be curious about. But again, I mean, if the town is a bit sluggish, as long as VRR, again, using it as the crutch, the fact that they do support 120 hertz is key here, of course, because, it does help with the reduced range on VRR compared to when you're just outputting 60 hertz, where basically, if you go below 48 frames per second, you drop out of VRR and then it looks terrible. So, maybe it would be pretty good on the Pro. We'll see.
Also, nice turning off the RT, maybe that'll help get it closer. For example, you can turn off RT and some of the other settings.
I know,
turning off RT in this game really affects the visuals.
I was going to say, like RT, it feels like it was built with that in mind. And like when you turn it off, the lighting just kind of becomes glowy and ugly, and you're just like, it loses the nuance. Because this is a game that's very dark, kind of gray, brownish, and like it relies on that RT to like make it look good.
To give it much more contrast.
Exactly.
Okay. I think we will take a look at this on a console, maybe report back in next week's Direct, but obviously we'll be covering the PS5 Pro version in due course.
Professional.